going to, it is 1 o'clock on Friday morning. I'm going to try to, because I know you said that you were having trouble getting output from the stylo. I saw that you had resolved the comment, so I'm not sure if you figured it out, but I'm just going to do this for myself just because I'm curious also. And I haven't done anything yet super recently with this. So in pre-processing, it's really annoying. Like I said, I normally use an external hard drive because my desktop is a disaster, as you can see. But I cannot locate my external hard drive right now. So I have to find that. So I'm using my desktop. So what I do is I keep all my Corpora in one place, which is here. And that doesn't need to be open. So, well, actually it does. But I've got the Corpus of Revenge Tragedies, the modern Shakespeare corpus. I have an old spelling, meaning like the original spelling, not the editorialized versions, but that was a decision that was made a while ago with my chair to use the modern Shakespeare corpus, meaning that the printer errors are gone, and all the words are spelled in a way that makes sense. And then the medical text corpus. So I always have my Corpora available, but then I also have the where I point R to, which is like for my previous video, which is this folder, which contains that corpus folder. And so this corpus folder is the one where I say, okay, R, I want you to look at these files. So right now I'm just going to delete all of them, and this is what I end up doing again and again and again. Just moving those to trash, doing a lot of copying. So now that corpus file is empty, because what I'm going to put in there is I'm going to put in all of the revenge tragedies. So I'm going to copy that. I don't ever drag and drop because I'm always worried they're going to disappear. So I'm going to put those in there. And I'm just going to put those in there for now. I'm not going to put any other corpora. So what I'm pointing R to now in the, God, did I put it in there? I did. So now the corpus file that R will read has just the revenge tragedies in it. And I still have the console open. I started reading about RStudio and then I got stressed out. So I just double checked my working directory and it's still the same. I haven't changed it since I recorded the last video. And I apologize, I'm not using headphones to record this right now because it's late, so it's not super busy and super noisy outside. So I'm going to open Stylo. And then in features, just going to leave it. Do PCA covariance, classic delta. Basically just how everything was before. And what's nice about the GUI is it will keep your, like, you don't have, it doesn't reset every time you open it. So like if I did a very particular type of, MFW settings or culling settings or whatever, and I reopen the GUI, it would all stay the same. So that's a nice thing. But sometimes I forget if I want to try other things. So output doesn't want to open right now. There we go. And I don't feel like changing anything. I'm just going to make this font size a little smaller. Don't know what the plot width. I'm going to make it a 9 and see what happens just because I'm curious. I'll say okay. And it's going to read all the revenge tragedies that I just dumped in that corpus file that I'm pointing it to, my working directory. Okay. And it'll get there, and there we go. Okay. So we can see that the Elizabethan is the green, Jacobean is the blue, and the Caroline is the red. So this is just looking at just the raw data in terms of how they would be laid out in a PCA. I don't know how to interpret this, but there it is. So I remember from what I wrote that, well, when I look at this immediately, and I don't know if I'm reading this wrong, is that there is a chunk of Elizabethan up here. Because part of my argument currently, unless it changes, is that there is a change between the three periods in specific ways. So, and I remember one of the PCA plots I put an image of in the Google Doc today or yesterday. They were talking about how, where there's a cluster that's sort of significant, but it doesn't have that distinguishing power. So I think this would be the cluster, like the most, like where everything's kind of bleeding together, and there's a little bit of all three texts. What I find interesting, though I don't know, because it's a PCA, I can't mathematically explain why, is again, there's these Elizabethan that are set off. There is Maid's Tragedy, a Jacobean text that's way up here. And then there's these two down here. This does not surprise me that these two are set off. The date on Misfortunes of Arthur is cut off, but Gorboduc and Misfortunes of Arthur are the two earliest revenge tragedies that I'm looking at. So I find it really interesting that these are so separated from this chunk, this cluster up here. Tragedy of Hoffman is one, I can't recall if I told you, but it's always an outlier. It's always in a weird place, kind of set off by itself. It was not performed until I think 1634, but it was arguably written in 1602, 1603. That's one of the difficult things in working with these texts, is that the dating of them is all very, maybe it was, we think, because they weren't really specific about it. So, and I also think it's interesting that there's the Elizabethan here, and then there's this kind of blue Jacobean chunk here, or cluster. And then the Caroline, I know this is His Pity, She's a Whore. I can't really see. I think this is Maid's Revenge. and I can't read. It's I can't remember what the traitor is. 1635. This is the tragedy of Ludovic, and there's one right on top of it that I can't tell what it is. Ludovic Sforza, and another one that I can't read because they are exactly on top of each other. So just looking at this, I think there's some interesting things in terms of if we're looking at the style of the revenge tragedies. We are seeing some specific clustering with the style of certain revenge or Elizabethan plays. Now, granted, we have Henry VI-II, Henry VI-III, Titus Andronicus. Those are all Shakespeare. Massacre at Paris is not Shakespeare. And I don't know what is in here because I cannot read it. So I kind of want to know what it is. But like Tamburlaine is not Shakespeare. Orestes, that's interesting. I find that now I know that I'm thinking about this concept of distinguishing power, but Orestes is another very early, along the same dates as Gorboduc and Misfortunes of Arthur. And Orestes, which is kind of I would say that the closest, it's a university drama, meaning that it was really it was a Greek tragedy translated by university students at Cambridge. But it's kind of like right there, and there's a lot of them centered around there, which is interesting. I can't tell. I can always see the word revenge, but I can never tell what else is in there. So there's a little bit of scattering in here. This is the one time I've seen Titus Andronicus not be an outlier. And I'm also wondering where, because there's certain outliers that I usually always see, and that's Titus Andronicus, Tragedy of Hoffmann, and Antonio's Revenge. Antonio's Revenge is a Jacobean. It's right on the cusp of Elizabethan and Jacobean. I'm trying to find it right now. Revenger's Tragedy. That's kind of sad that that's in the middle. Well, and it's very close. And here's Hamlet Q2. I'd love to see where the other two Hamlets are. But here's Women Beware Women. Revenger's Tragedy. The Second Maiden's Tragedy. And here's Hamlet, the First Folio. So that's interesting because we've got a chunk of Shakespeare up here, but the First Folio and the Q2, there's Hamlet Q2, Hamlet Q1, there's Q1, Q2, and FF, so Quarto 1, Quarto 2, and First Folio. The Duke of Milan is in there. Again, I'm looking for Antonio's Revenge, which is not a Caroline drama, so I know it's not red. I think it's here. No? I see a large A, but I can't tell. I don't think that's it. Anyways, so what I'm going to do now, get out of here, PCA plot, is I'm going to add just Shakespeare to that. So right now I just have the Revenge Tragedies, so I'm going to go grab the modern Shakespeare corpus, copy that, and dump it in here. There it goes. So I'm guessing what I'm doing is I'm adding more variables because that was one of my questions is like what constitutes a variable and what constitutes a component and what does variance mean in a PCA? These are all, I feel like, questions that if I asked a mathematician, they would laugh at me. Okay, so now the corpus file includes revenge tragedies and Shakespeare. My other argument about Shakespeare that I was actually arguing about this when I met last with my one of my committee members who's the only other. So when you're a Shakespearean, you work in a period called early modern. She's the only other early modernist on my committee, and we were getting into it a little bit on disagreeing on things. But one of my arguments on Shakespeare is that he is, people talk, he's a wonderful writer. I love him, love his work. But let's see if this changes anything. He's incredibly conservative. So there's actually not a lot of revenge tragedies from Shakespeare. There's just based his, he's got 37 plays, and there might be like 4 or 5, I can't remember exactly. And Hamlet, of course, is his most famous. Okay, let's see what this comes up with. If it looks, we're gonna have more colors this time. Looking scary. Scary looking. Scary. Wish there was a way to that's why I like Jiffy, is because in there is where you can actually look at things. But okay. So change the colors a little bit. Obviously Elizabeth's drama, Elizabethan revenge blue, Caroline revenge red, Jacobean revenge orange, and then we have histories are in black, comedy is in green, tragedies are in gray, and romances are in purple. So sorry, I'm just looking at it. I mean, what I see immediately is that the top half is mostly the Shakespearean corpus. And then the bottom half is mostly the revenge tragedies. Again, we have Gorbaduc and another Elizabethan, which I cannot read. But here's Marlowe, Shakespeare. Here's what's interesting. You can see we have Titus up here. But here's my Titus. What I'll do after this is I'm just curious to see the difference, because one question I've always had is, should I use the original spelling texts or the modern Shakespeare corpus? And this PCA plot makes me think that I should use old spelling, because if Titus is coming up here, but my Titus is down here, the revenge tragedy, versus the one from the the modern Shakespearean corpus, that's a problem. So let me do that, and I'm just gonna see if there's any difference in there. I'm actually gonna take a screenshot of this so I can. I don't know what happened there. Let's try that again. Here we go. Okay. So let's close that. So I'm going to change my corpus again. I'm just going to get rid of everything. And I'm going to drop in the old spelling. And I just want to double. I haven't looked at this corpus in a while because I don't usually use it. I have 6301. I'm not sure what that is. Winter's Tale, Two Noble Gents. So I've got like Two Noble Q. That's going to be Two Noble Quarto, right? It's 1634, 1623. Oh no, sorry. Two Noble Gents and Two Noble Kinsmen and the Gentleman of Verona. 12th Night, Troilus, and Troilus. I've got two Troiluses of Q1, 1623. Timon, Tempest, Taming, Romeo and Juliet. I've got three different texts there. Richard III. I have four different texts there. Pericles, Much Ado, Midsummer. Again, you can see we have 1623, and then we have quartos. So I've got like multiple texts of the same plays that were published differently. Midsummer, Summer. I spelled that wrong. Should probably change that. Should be Merry-wise, not Mert-wise. Merchant, Venice, Measure for Measure, Macbeth, Love's Labour's Lost, King Lear, King John, Caesar, Henry VIII, Henry V, Henry IV-2, Henry IV-2, Henry IV-1, Henry IV-1, Cymbeline, Coriolanus, Comedy of Errors, As You Like It, Antony and Cleopatra, All's Well That Ends Well. So we'll just use all of those, because in this one I'm using the multiple publications. Sometimes they're published Elizabethan, sometimes they're published later. This, publication at this time is terrible. And then we will dump that in there. And then I will just add the revenge plays to that. Okay. And all the output I'm like experimenting with doesn't seem to be doing much. Okay, so now the corpus file is the revenge texts versus, no, versus is the right word, but the original spellings. We're still doing PCA covariance output, line width. Maybe I need to get bigger. Let's see if 9 does it. Okay. Okay. Let's see what happens. This has been so much of my life. Watching these texts go through. What I haven't done with, oh God, this looks terrifying. With this one, with the original spelling, is split it up into genre. So, okay. So that's something I might need to do. to play around with it more. It looks like, we've got May's Tragedy again, the two Corpora Ducamus and Arthur down here again. We again have this, like, I don't know why there's two Titus Andronicus in the Revenge Tragedy corpus. I need to look at that. So obviously this is a cluster, but I feel like this looks different, right, than the modern Shakespeare corpus. The problem with this is that we're just getting the 4 colors because versus the modern spelling corpus where I titled everything by genre. So I could do the same for this, which would help color-wise, I think, to see things. But in terms of just looking at, like, where the green is, I mean, the Shakespeare just, to me, feels pretty just in the middle. There's Coriolanus and Love's Labor's Lost down here, which is interesting because some people say that he did not write Love's Labor's Lost. Henry VIII, which is his final play that he wrote. Again, some people say he didn't write that. Richard II, Romeo and Juliet, the First Quarto. And the only ones that are up here are the Henry VI threes, and the quarto and the folio versions are the same. So they must be super similar. But that doesn't surprise me because these are Elizabethan Shakespearean texts. And Henry VI, 2 is down here. There's Henry VI Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. But here we have that was Henry VIII. But then this is Henry IV. So just trying to read through Massacre at Paris. So in terms of, like, what's really standing out, and again, I don't understand, like, we've got these 4 quadrants, right? So, like, okay, there's Elizabethan revenge tragedies up here. Then we've got, like, Tamerlane, which is by Christopher Marlowe, and these early very early revenge tragedies, which some people don't even include in the revenge tragedy world. They're also quite similar in terms of what they go over, but in terms of narrative. The Caroline, there's a little bit of, the Maid's Tragedy. I don't know why that would be up there, but I'm curious as to why. Two Gents, it's a comedy. So yeah, I think without splitting this up into genres, it's harder because all of the Shakespeare is just black. So we're not really seeing, like, where's the comedy, where's the tragedy, where's the history, etc., etc. So that's all I think I'm going to do for now. At least I don't want this video to get super long and me just kind of looking at stuff that's hard to read. But I think this makes a case for potentially using the modern, or excuse me, not using the modern spelling and using the original spellings. Um, so just because, yeah. Curious, down here we've got White Devil and I think Duchess of Malfi, which is really interesting. And White Devil and Duchess of Malfi were actually written by John Marston. So we have the same author there, which is slightly out of this. I would say the cluster, right, is this kind of this. I don't know if I would include this part. I don't know because there's a slight space there. But Coriolanus is a tragedy. Love's Labor's Lost. It's identified as a comedy. Whatever. Again, it's got authorship questions. So, and then I can't read what this Caroline drama or this Caroline revenge tragedy is because of Shakespeare Henry. One of the Henrys is in the way. Okay, I wish I could read this better. I don't know what to do. Othello. The Jacobean drama is. I mean, I just see there's. There just seems to be. I mean, if I look at the colors in just the whole bottom quadrant, not quadrant, sorry, bottom half versus the colors up here, right? Like there's more green up here than there is down here. There's more blue, or there's more Jacobean, and I'd say there's more Shakespeare than there is up here. So again, I'm just trying to point out like what I'm seeing, which is kind of obvious. But how I would then go about talking about that, I don't know. And the Caroline drama, I find it looks like there's less Caroline drama, revenge tragedy down here than there is up here. I mean, we've got 'Tis Pity She's a Whore, Fatal Contract. There's so many plays called Maid's Tragedy or Maid's Revenge or Second Maiden's Tragedy. Like they're all similar. Bloody Banquets in there. So I find that kind of interesting. Okay. So yeah. So I think that actually brought out something that I didn't anticipate, which was changing up that corpus. So. And I'm going to take a screenshot of that as well. And that'll be my movie for now. But I will keep working and keeping you posted on things. I'm looking forward to talking to Machi soon so I can keep him on a video chat forever and just be like, tell me exactly what to do and what does this mean. So hopefully that will happen sooner rather than later. Okay. I'll talk to you later. Bye.